So, welcome. One of the things that I speak about in soul coaching is what I call soul assignments. And essentially, it's something that comes into awareness, something that gets magnified and that you begin to see in a lot of different places. And when you pay attention, it feels alive. It feels like something wants to explore that, unpack that. And so today's meditation um, is around a soul assignment that I've been receiving this week. And it's just awareness of, well, in this example, I was responding to an email and to a text, and I could see myself just really kind of quickly wanting to get it done and moving into my personality, into the thing that I thought I should say. And something just stopped me, and I could see that I was moving into a way of being that felt, well, not genuine. And so today I want to explore this idea of practicing being genuine. So hopefully you can all relate to how when you are with a parent or a child sometimes, or a partner, or at work, that you go into a version of yourself that doesn't feel quite genuine or natural, but there's some kind of patterning or habitual energy behind it, and you just sometimes often find yourself going into it and almost watching yourself go into a kind of a trance. And while that is just part of being a human being, it's also possible, if we're interested, to use those times when we go into that kind of trance of the personality to inquire into what exactly is happening inside for us to move from a place of more naturalness into a place of almost like programming, something that feels a little bit robotic, definitely more surface. And so just the noticing that we have moved from a place of maybe more relaxation in the natural being into a place of programming, or what I'm calling not genuine, is an indication that we know what it feels like to come from a natural place. Generally, it feels more relaxed, more in the moment, um, lighter very often. And when we move into that trance of the personality, it often can feel like we're more in our heads. The body might feel tense, and if we're aware of the energy body, it will begin to feel a little bit contracted as well. And there's also a sense of disconnection with the other. And so we already know what it feels like to come from a genuine place and what it feels like to come from personality. And while I don't want to make it wrong that we are coming from personality, if we in fact have a desire to return to our true nature, these habits that we have will come into the light eventually. And we can use the circumstance itself that causes us to go into a not so genuine way of being as an entranceway into reverse engineering the programming that causes that shift to the unnatural self in the first place. So I invite you to think about a situation in your life, a relationship, even just a recent conversation you had where you could feel yourself shifting into that more personality type way of being, or as I was doing, a text message, an email, um, and just kind of think about that. And it's likely that there's something quite recent in your mind. or maybe it was an interaction with a child or with your partner. These are places where we can really go into a trance because we begin to have this kind of dance with the most important people in our lives. And both people get comfortable in that dance, but eventually, for one or both people, it can begin to feel kind of dull, kind of empty, not alive. And so all it takes is one person to shift that dance. And the practice that I'm taking us through today is one way that we could use. So the first step is the awareness of moving into something that doesn't feel as genuine. And so as you think about this situation in your life, just kind of call it to mind. It doesn't have to be anything major at all. In fact, sometimes it's good to practice with something that's not so charged. So as you call it to mind, just kind of bring it into your consciousness and let's invite it to be here in the field so that it can be explored, so that it can open itself up, so that it can feel welcome. And as you call it to mind, you'll likely begin to notice different things lighting up in your experience. So, how does your breath feel in this moment? So, I'm asking you to bring consciousness to both the breath as well as keeping that particular situation in your awareness, welcoming it into the space. Just notice how the breath feels. And very often, when we are moving into a not genuine way of being, the breath will feel a little bit short, a little bit restricted. Just noticing that and trusting your own experience with that. Just kind of opening to the breath as it's showing up without any value judgment. And this will begin to inform you as to the areas in the body that are congested, that are leading to that lack of contact with the soul, which is where the genuine expression comes from. So we bring awareness to those places, oftentimes in the throat, the chest, the belly, but it could be beyond that. You could notice it in the shoulders or the head, the hands, the feet. And just kind of allowing the breath to be as it is. We're not trying to change anything here. We're just using it as an entranceway into this exploration. Right. And we'll just stay with the breath for a little bit. So you want to bring as friendly an attitude as possible towards this exploration. Every situation, every experience, every moment can be an invitation to slow down and to learn more about ourselves and to find our way back to the light of our true being. That's it. Good. And you may notice that the breath begins to shift a little bit on its own. And you may also notice that awareness begins to show you more of your being, including the physical being. So again, we're kind of holding this relationship or the situation lightly, where we find ourselves moving into an ungenuine, if that's a word, way of being. And now notice what happens in your body. Where does the tension arise? That's it. And it may be in a lot of different places. In fact, sometimes the whole being just sort of seems to contract inwards and to kind of rigidify. So noticing that, and again, bringing a friendly attitude to it. So to remember that all of these mechanisms were a way of managing at one point a way of fitting in, a way of um, getting our needs met, a way of being what other people seem to want us to be. And so we just open to the body that is contracting in different places. And we bring a real kind of gentle, curious, like genuinely curious attitude towards the tension. So of course the mind's going to want to make it wrong because it tends to want what's pleasant. But the tension is a form of intelligence. And in order to unpack that intelligence, we need to include it. And if we're going to include it, and if it's going to feel welcome, into consciousness, we need to practice really stepping back from any type of evaluation. And you just kind of patiently hold space for the body exactly as it is. And in the midst of that, you may begin to notice some changes, maybe some softening, maybe new areas that light up. And there's no wrong response to this practice. There's just the ongoing invitation to stay present to what shows up. So in my experience here, and I may be connecting to the field, I'm noticing some softening, a little bit more space, less density, and also an awareness of more subtle sensations, particularly in the center line of the body. So we can just drop in, every once in a while we drop in the situation that we're exploring, that we're inquiring into as part of this meditation today. We just drop it in like a pebble in a pond so that it can ripple and really kind of remind us of what is actually being explored, what is being summoned forth by this situation. And so we drop it in again. And now let's open to the subtler realm of what might be activated emotionally or energetically. So you may not be able to name the emotion, but you will notice some subtle and sometimes not so subtle contractions, oftentimes in the center line of the body, which is along the energy body's main current. And you open to that too, and you bring this friendly curiosity as best you can. Even sometimes I like to use the word welcome, or even thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. I know that you have presented yourself to assist me on this journey that I've taken in this lifetime to return to the natural self, to the genuine self, to return to my true nature. This is what I'm here for. And this is what you're here for, this particular situation or relationship. And so thank you. Welcome. And so we notice any kind of emotional and energetic sensation. There might even be images that arise, memories. And all of that is fine, is good, is part of the system unpacking. And we can just sort of lean back, sometimes physically, but certainly energetically, into a place more witnessing what is arising in our being and letting it. And as you do this, you may get some evidence of energy moving. Personally, I'm feeling some tingling in my fingers, my toes, my hands, my feet, and a kind of a greater sense of flow down the central column from the tailbone to the crown. And so the invitation is to rest as presence while all of this unwinds, because presence is a solvent for these conditioned, these programmed patterns in our system. And once they are brought into consciousness, that is enough really to create space for it to unwind on its own. So there's nothing we need to do to manipulate the details that are showing up. It's more about leaning back, as I say, into the sense of just watching, opening to, being available to. You may notice a sigh coming in, or a sense of beginning to feel more settled on the ground. And one more time, just drop that situation where you move into a less than genuine way of being, and see if it brings forth, ushers forth any other sensations or awareness, and invite that into presence as well. And it's possible at this point that you may begin to see or access a way of being in this particular situation or this relationship that feels more confidently genuine, more genuinely genuine. That you may touch into this capacity that you feel to move out of the usual patterning, and even beyond a capacity, a delight in practicing being genuine in this situation. For the remainder of this meditation, I invite you to just continue to rest in and as presence. And if any other movements related to this practice of being genuine come through, just allow them, let them inform you, but mostly just remain spacious and let yourself really rest. So we're letting go of the inquiry per se, and we're moving into just a more natural meditative state. Not that the other wasn't natural, but there's different things we can do within the meditation practice, and inquiry is one, which we just did. But it's always nice to end by just resting in the meditation state, in the meditative state, which isn't really a state, but just kind of in this pure beingness. Let's put it that way. All right, enjoy, my friends.